Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to East Central Missouri and the world, and welcome to the James Strong Show podcast number 260. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making us a part of your day. I appreciate it. This podcast was recorded on the morning of Saturday, March the 12th, from the James Strong Studio in Western St. Charles County. Kind of having to do an audible this morning. We had a podcast scheduled with a guest. Yesterday, the guest had to cancel because a bunch of stuff was coming up, and we're going to do the podcast with the guest at a different time. But stuff like that happens. So Saturday morning comes, and I don't have a topic, but I still need to do a podcast. So what do? Well, I get up early, I start reading, I start doing stuff. What the heck am I going to talk about today? Well, I came up with a topic that's a bit unique, okay? But then that's kind of what this show's all about, the uniqueness, the news of the day, the things that are going on that aren't exactly cookie cutter that everybody's talking about, okay? And I was looking at the news. Let me rephrase this. I was looking at some of the news that had nothing to do with the war in the Ukraine, okay? Because I didn't want to talk about that because everybody's talking about that, and I wanted to maybe attempt to do something a bit lighter, okay? Again, if everybody's talking about something, I don't like to talk about it. So I started looking at other things in the news, other things going on, other headlines that had nothing to do with the war in Ukraine. Major League Baseball, the lockout is done. The players are back to work. Because the pandemic is waning in most places, new movies are being made. New movies are being released. People are going to the movies, the movie houses, the theaters, the cinemas to see new movies. Lots of new music coming out. New music, new artists, and new cars also. And most of them have to do with being electric car. And as I was looking at all these things, Major League Baseball coming back to play, all the new movies coming out, the new music by the new artists, and the new electric cars that are coming out, there was a common thread in all of them with me. And that common thread was, I didn't care about any of it. None of it even remotely piqued my interest. And once upon a time, that wouldn't have been the case because I have always been, since a boy, a big-time baseball fan. Up until about the last 20 years, maybe. I've really been in 10 years, maybe. I've been very interested in new movies that came out, at least some of them. New music, depends on the music, but I'm always one to listen to and give new artists a chance, new music a chance. You don't want to listen to the same old stuff all the time. And new cars trip my trigger. I love new cars, but none of them interest me anymore. And I'm going to explain why none of them interest me anymore, I should say. Major League Baseball. I would say that as a boy and young man, I used to see about 15 baseball games a year. And when I say see, I mean physically go to Busch Stadium, take money out of my wallet, pay the guy for a ticket, and sit in a seat. About 15 a year. After the lockout in 1981, where they basically flipped us the bird and eliminated half the season, I lost interest in the sport. And I probably have not paid to see 15 games total from 1981 to date. So 15 games a year versus 15 games or less in the last, what would that be, 40 years, 40 years? And I think, why do you not care anymore? Well, this latest strike / lockout / shutdown, it gets to the point where it's millionaires arguing with billionaires. When you get a guy like Max Scherzer, who by the time his next contract will be done, he will have earned something approaching $500 million. He was the spokesman for the Players Union and talking like Karl Marx, the bourgeois versus the proletariat. Now, those of you who are having a tough time because of inflation, because of gas prices, because, yeah, sure, you've gotten a 5% raise, and then everything went up 10%, okay? Life isn't getting easier for you. And here's a guy saying, look, these rookies only make $570,000 a year. They need a whole lot more. Yeah. And the billionaires who own the teams saying, look, we're losing our tail. We're not making any money in Major League Baseball. Stop it. Just stop it. They've lost my interest. Oh, and by the way, baseball has turned into a play baby video game gambling sport, not a sport where a guy with a bat in his hand tries to hit the ball from a pitcher. Okay, it's turned into much more than that. They're trying to make the game shorter because it's boring. 3-hour plus games are boring. But they didn't want to so much have a pitch clock with a pitcher had to pitch the ball in within 15 seconds. They didn't want to do that because, and this is a true story, this is what I heard on a sports program. They didn't want to reduce the pitch clock too much because a lot of people bet on, will the next pitch be a ball or a strike? And the gambling casinos would lose their revenue on those types of bets. Isn't that ridiculous? The shift. You know what the shift is? That's where you get a guy like the Cardinals' Matt Carpenter, who only gets up to bat, he's a left-handed batter, and pulls the ball into right field every single time. Matt Carpenter was a wonderful MVP candidate once upon a time. But then the defenders said, you know what, if he's never going to hit the ball to left field, just put the players over in left field, over in right field. When they did that, they started catching the ball. Now, what Matt Carpenter could have done is laid down a bunt down the third baseline every time he got up, and his batting average would be around 900. But they don't do that. They just pull the ball. So what do? You change the rules. The shift is eliminated. So the new game is the fielders have to play in a designated spot. They can't move over to where the ball's being hit. And they did that because they want to put more action into the game, they say. And most importantly, home runs is how players get paid. And if you doubles and home runs. And if you eliminate the shift, you can have the guy who gets up and hits 250 but 45 home runs and just jacks the ball every time. So he's going to strike out 250 times a year, 250 times a year, and hit 45 home runs a year. So he's going to homer, double, or strike out because that's how players get paid. The players' union and the owners have ruined baseball for me. I can't like it anymore. I just can't. They've ruined the sport. They've taken a sport that from the 1860s until 1969 or 70, the only rule change was they lowered the mound because Bob Gibson struck out every batter that he faced. Okay? So Bob Gibson, in my opinion, the greatest player who ever played because he's the only one they changed the rules because of. Now they have all kinds of different rules. Pitch counts, designated hitter, which I could live with or without. You can't shift. You have to do this. You can only go to the mound so many times. You can only do this. They didn't have any of those rules back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and the games were 2 hours long. All they have to do is expand the strike zone so the players have to swing at a ball that they don't like, that the pitcher gave them, and they only get 3 chances. And then they're out because you have 3 strikes and you're out. But Major League Baseball has been ruined by corporate greed, both on the players and the owners. So Major League Baseball, don't care. New music. Once upon a time, I liked the new artists, and I have nothing against new music, new artists, the new genre of music. I have nothing against it, okay? I just don't like it. I really don't care about it. It doesn't trip my trigger. It doesn't excite me. I don't want to spend time listening to it. I can't follow the beat. And again, that's not to say that there's anything wrong with it. It's not to say that it's bad. It's just not my cup of tea. I like classic rock, okay? That's the type of music I like. And I like other music as well. But it's all the older stuff. The newer stuff, I don't. The only newer stuff I find myself saying, hey, that's a catchy tune. It's where some new artist has taken an old song and repurposed it. Now, does that make me an old man? Probably. But new music does not appeal to me, mainly because it's different, mainly because music tends to, I want to be relaxed or entertained by music. And if it's something I'm not used to, something I can't get into, I'm not going to spend 12 hours listening to it just so I can get used to it when there's so much music that I already like that I listen to. Friends, I can listen to music from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s from now until the day I die, and I will never hear it all. There's enough of the old music out there for me to enjoy. So I'm not really going to put my time or effort into the new music. Now, there's a method to my madness here, so please be patient. New movies, same thing. I used to love going to the movies. I used to see every movie that came out within reason. I probably used to see at the movie theater 60 to 70% of all the movies that came out. If I see 2 a year, that's a lot. I just don't see new movies anymore. There's a few new movies that come out that I do see. Usually we buy them on Amazon Prime or something and watch them at home. But very few. We just don't watch them anymore because they don't trip my trigger. And believe it or not, new cars are the same way, especially the new electric cars. Because electric cars, they're the future, okay? The ICE cars, ICEs, internal combustion engines, they're going by the way of the dinosaur. Nobody wants to put any money into them, car companies that is, because the future is in electric cars. And by the way, that's true. Because if you look at the practicality of a car, what do people use cars for? To go from point A to point B. That's what most people use cars for. Most people don't have love affairs with cars like me. I'm kind of dopey about that kind of stuff. So I get that. But the new electric cars, they're cheaper to make. They're going to be cheaper to run. They're going to be cheaper to fix. And really, as soon as they get the battery thing figured out and they get the whole where you're going to plug them in thing figured out, they're going to be better. They're going to be better when it comes to getting from point A to point B. But basically, what they're going to be is they're going to be a chassis called a roller skate, and a handful of people are going to make chassis. Those people who make chassis are going to sell them to all the different car companies, and they're going to put a cookie cutter electric motor in them and then customize the interior and exterior. In other words, the soul has been removed from the automobile, and I can't get into the new cars. Now, let's review that whole list. Major League Baseball, new movies, new music, new cars. And you say to yourself, well, Strong, you're just being an old man here. New. Get off my yard. Get off my lawn. And maybe you're right. But there is one common thread with all this stuff. Major League Baseball, movies, music, cars. Here's the common thread. They're new and they're changing. But most importantly, they're not geared or marketed towards me. They don't want me. I am not between 18 and 55. Ask any marketing guy or gal. That's who the people want to sell to. For some reason, 18 to 55. Never mind that people over 55 have more money than any of the other groups. That's another story for another day. But they don't market their stuff to me. They don't want me. So is it shocking at all that I don't want them? It's like you're dating a gal and she stands you up 4 straight times for a date, and then you just decide to not call her. Are you being rude because you're not calling her? No, it's very obvious that she doesn't want anything to do with you. So you can move on and do something else. And that's what I've done. I've moved on to other things. Now, why? Like most things in life,